I'm Dr. Antenucci. I started my career in dentistry in the Air Force, where I helped our military personnel get healthy and stay healthy. From there, I built a successful practice in Huntington, New York, and later as a teacher, lecturer, and author, I shared my knowledge and experience with students and fellow healthcare professionals. And now my journey's taken me here to explore the world of health, wellness, diet, fitness, and nutrition, as together we discover and find the good life. Welcome to Finding the Good Life with Dr. Gene. Growing up has its challenges at any time. Before the current crisis that we're facing now, we're already dealing with so many challenges with childhood, for children growing up. Kids today face major peer pressure, and they deal with an excess amount of information. Their diets are unhealthy. They have far too much sugar and processed fat. Children and young adults simply don't get enough physical activity and have far too much electronic stimulation. And because of the way children are parented, they lack experience in solving and facing issues for themselves. So today we want to look at these issues. With this crisis we're facing, all of this is amplified. Adults can hardly deal with it. How does this affect our children and young adults? They're home 24/7. There's no escape from parents, from dealing with confusing and frightening information, and they see their parents scared and out of sorts. How will this affect them as they grow up? Today's show will deal with helping our children navigate the world that they live in. Our first guest today is Dr. Saenz. He has a PhD in psychology and is the author of the best-selling book, The Power of a Teacher. Thank you so much for being with us today, Doctor. I'm happy that you can share your thoughts with us, and I'm looking forward to what you have to say. You've devoted your life to dealing with challenges in education, but I bet you were never prepared for what's going on today.
The challenges we're facing are unprecedented. Clearly, we are in uncharted water. So all the more reason to practice self-awareness and self-regulation. If we can do it now, then we can do it anytime.
So let's go back a step before we even look at what's going on today. What are the most common issues that you deal with when you counsel children and adolescents?
Do you mean generally speaking, or in the context of what's happening?
In general, yeah. Yes.
A lot of it, when we're working with children, it has to do with the feelings of depression and anxiety. Feelings of anxiety can come from, we deal a lot with, which especially children who are raised in an upper middle to upper class environment. There's a lot of pressure to perform, and that begins to wear on them. So we treat a lot of anxiety disorders in our clinic. We also treat anxiety in children that come from low socioeconomic homes or rough neighborhoods because they're scared. They don't know that they're safe. They live in a state of fight or flight. They're hyperarousal. And then we see depression. A lot of children just feel sad about the struggles that they're facing. The world today, it sounds kind of cliche to say, that it's such a different world than when we grew up. But the reality is that it's such a different world than it was 5 years ago. It's not even a generational thing anymore.
And now on top of that, you throw what's going on. That must amplify everything to the nth degree.
It really has. And what's really challenging for us as mental health providers is, on one hand, really what we're seeing in children now as a result of all these national changes, it's really not causing most of what we see now. It's really just exposing what's already been there. It is causing some trauma, but honestly, we're not going to see that for another 6 to 12 months after kids go back into schools. If we're thinking that, things will be back to normal, they sort of will, but kids are going to have and we as a country will have a lot of collective emotion that we'll need to process, for years down the road.
We have to take a short break, but will you stay with us a bit longer?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
Over 70 years of experience in heart and aviation, the members of the Association of Flight Attendants know the realities of the aircraft cabin better than anyone. We don't just serve drinks, we save lives. We don't just negotiate contracts, we move major policy issues like the smoking ban, no knives on planes, clean water, and safe food on board. The air we breathe matters, and we stop the spraying of poisonous pesticides. The Association of Flight Attendants, stronger together, better together.
We're back with Dr. Adam Saenz. So if you had to boil things down, which I know is really difficult and probably an unfair question, but if you had to boil down to a couple of most positive lessons that we can learn today, what would you say? What would they be?
One of the most important and valuable lessons that we can learn is we're learning the power of adaptability and flexibility. Control freaks are not doing well with this, right? And so this is just reminding us that on any given day, we could wake up and there are things we just can't control. So this is a wonderful opportunity to learn the value of surrender across so many domains: financial surrender, professional surrender, educational surrender, occupational, all of that. It's one of the most important things we can learn is the value of surrender. And the second thing I would say is this. It's very hard to be in the moment now because we're worried about all of those things that we can't control. We're worried about money and our jobs and about our kids' education and the illness itself. But the bottom line is that it's very unlikely that any family in America will ever have this unique opportunity to be together this way again. So I would say, use this time to love each other, to invest in each other, to be with each other, to deepen relationships, to deepen intimacy, because full and overwhelming as the whole thing is, it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. We have been given the gift of time. So much has been taken away, but the gift of time is generous right now. So let's invest it in love.
I think those are the most powerful words that one can hear. You gave a lot of important information. Your book is The Power of a Teacher. Where can we learn more about you?
Probably the best way would be to go to my website, and it's my name. It's adamsaenz.com.
Dr. Saenz, thank you so much. We'll be right back with more of Finding the Good Life. Children and young adults in America today show signs of major problems when it comes to diet, fitness, and nutrition. Nearly 1/3 of all children and youth in the United States are either overweight or are obese. Add to the fact that fewer children and young adults nationwide don't do 60 minutes of aerobic and physical activities each day. They choose to sit and spend their hours playing video games or interacting electronically instead. And bicycle riding and becoming physically active is almost a thing of the past. With today's added challenge of sheltering in place and being at home 24/7, my sense is the problem becomes even worse. Dr. Nicole Beurkens joins us today to discuss this. Dr. Beurkens is the founder and executive director of Horizons Developmental Resource Center. There, she provides a wide range of counseling services in one setting to help children and families with a number of issues. Hello, Dr. Beurkens, and welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here today. Tell us about yourself. Tell us what you do.
I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I specialize in working with children, young adults, and families around issues of developmental disability, mental health challenges, those kinds of things. I actually have a background in teaching, started my career as an educator, so understand that aspect of things as well. And I have a board certification in nutrition. So I weave nutrition and integrative lifestyle strategies into the mental health and developmental disabilities treatment that I do. I have a clinic where I work with families of children with all ages. And on the personal side, I'm also a mom to 4 kids. So I understand the personal component and live these things at home as well as integrate these things in my work.
Well, let me ask you, crises like the ones we're facing today have to only amplify the problems that already exist in children and teens. So give me an overview of the problems faced in general, go into it a little more depth when it comes to nutrition before we even get to the issues raised by the current coronavirus crisis. So what are the challenges children face? What are the consequences of these challenges? Where are we at right now?
Yeah, nutrition certainly has been a concern for a long time for kids, and the issues now with the coronavirus pandemic only amplify that. So, what we know is that many children do not have what we call good nutrient status. They may be eating enough calories. In fact, many children are eating more calories than they probably need to, but the nutritional density of that isn't there. They're nutrient deficient. They're eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugary foods, a lot of foods with unhealthy fats. And those we know can lead to significant problems, not only physically, but also in terms of brain function and mental health. So we have the concerns about physical problems like obesity, diabetes, those kinds of things, but also the significant brain function issues with poor diet impacting mood, driving anxiety up, making kids more unfocused and inattentive and hyperactive. So lots of things that we're dealing with from a nutrition standpoint that we've known are problems. And when we come into a situation like what we're dealing with today, it only amplifies those issues.
In my mind, in my observation, there's a big effect of electronic stimulation and how it's affected by a person's nutrition and lifestyle, and vice versa. I mean, the sugars can help. I'm sure, I'm not a researcher, but I'm sure there's a part of the brain that's affected greatly by the amount of carbohydrates and sugars that are being fed and the processed foods and the chemistry there, along with the combination of electronic stimulation. I think it's a recipe for disaster.
The issue of electronics overuse is another significant concern. And you put that together with the nutrition problems, and what we see is that we have a lot of unhealthy kids. In fact, the most current research shows that around 54% of children, at least in the US, have some form of chronic health condition. So, in general, what we're seeing is that 1 in every 2 kids, or even more, is not as healthy as we would want them to be. And we know that electronics certainly plays a role in that. What you're talking about with that connection, that stimulation from electronics in the brain, is that dopamine connection, that surge of dopamine that we get in our brain that makes us, have a feeling of getting a reward, of wanting more of that can come from eating things like, sugar and carbohydrates. It can also come from things like gaming and electronics use. And what we're seeing is kids spending more and more time on devices in general, even before this pandemic situation. Kids spending a very high amount of time on devices. This is the most sedentary generation of children ever. They're not moving their bodies. They're not getting the physical activity that they need for their physical health, as well as to support their brain development. So certainly when you combine concerns about overuse of devices with poor nutrition, we've got some definite problems that we need to take a look at for our kids.
So let me ask you, when a crisis like this, a monumental crisis like this comes up, where kids are at home all the time, what are the consequences? Add in the crisis to where they've been. What do you think is going to be the results months from now when this is over?
We know that children who enter a period of intense stress, or we might even call this a crisis situation for some kids and families, when they enter those situations already struggling in one or more areas, so already have maybe weaker immune function due to a poor diet or high stress, they already are not coping as well as they could, having higher anxiety or more irritability because of diet, because of lifestyle, because of device use, all of those things. Those kids are going to struggle more in a situation like this. Not only are they less resilient, but they're also more prone to things like rampant overuse of devices during this time, where some kids and families are just spending all of their time in front of screens, eating, heavily processed foods. And I completely understand people need to do what they need to do right now to get by. But I think that we want parents to be considering how to use this as an opportunity to perhaps support children in terms of developing healthy habits, even in small ways, as opposed to just saying, well, whatever happens, happens here.
That's great advice, and I'm so glad we're talking about this. How can we learn more about Horizons?
Yes, so my clinic is called Horizons Developmental Resource Center, horizonsdrc.com. We work with families throughout the United States and abroad on these kinds of issues and much more. And then my website, drbeurkens.com, has lots of videos and podcast episodes and articles and things that any parent can access to help them get more information on these topics or lots of other things to support them on their parenting journey.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today, Dr. Beurkens. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Season after season, year after year, customers have found that when it comes to replacing their windows, there is only one company to call, Renewal by Andersen. Call 1-800-468-9503 now. So what makes Renewal by Andersen so good? Fibrex material, an innovative composite material exclusive to Andersen that provides strength and durability, far surpassing vinyl. In fact, it won't warp or bow over time like vinyl does. Get the window replacement solution proven to stand the test of time, plus the peace of mind that comes from a superior service experience. That's Renewal by Andersen. Call 1-800-468-9503 today and get 20% off your entire order with this exclusive TV offer. Again, that's 800-468-9503 for 20% off. Plus, get no money down, no interest, and no monthly payments for 12 months. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-468-9503 now.
Welcome back. When many of us think of dealing with children, our thoughts go to the children in our homes, those who have a support of a family, a roof to go to, a bed to sleep in. But that isn't always the case. What about the children who don't have that support, especially in light of the crisis caused by this pandemic? My next guest is Tara Hopkins. Tara is a healthcare worker who started Umi's House, which is a safe haven for teens to help at-risk young people who fail to engage in school or who have problems at home. She's run workshops in Umi's House on everything from human trafficking to teen dating violence. Hello, Tara. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
How's things in Philadelphia right now with this crisis going on?
Philadelphia is pretty much chaotic right now. I think it's a lot of too much information being released where everyone has a different idea as far as where they should be, what they should be doing, what they should not be doing. With the weather being pretty nice, we having issues with the playgrounds, the basketball courts, the parks are filled, things along the lines of that. I also think it's a tangible issue to where what you see in the media versus what you experience in your own home. If you're not seeing it with your own eyes, you're not really connecting the parts.
Crazy.
So it's definitely going to take some work.
Wow, that makes your job even so much more tougher. Let's go back a step. Let me try to understand what inspired you to start this organization and tell us all about it.
Generally, my inspiration for Umi's House is my taking to teens, more or less. I've always been that person that's been the middleman. Parents can't speak to their kids the way they need to, or the kids can't communicate with their parents. So I've always been that person that they've called in. At some point, I realized it was something I should use to my advantage. Trying to help out as far as community in general, more or less urban communities, with things as far as building self-esteem, self-worth, teaching accountability, because kids need to learn in general with every action there's a reaction. I feel the need to offer programs anywhere from the hot topic in the news nowadays is the human trafficking, all the way to things as far as financial literacy.
Wow. Well, what are the strategies that you have to help young people deal with stress?
The overall strategy for helping anyone deal with stress is communication. Teens have to have a mutual understanding. If you have to come down to that level, if that means texting instead of talking, emailing, social media, whatever it is you have to do to reach down to make them comfortable to open up with you, that's one of the greatest assets that you can offer them. You need to offer them some type of safe haven or a comfort zone.
You got to communicate and reach them. Are there any things that surprise you when you're working with children?
One of the things that surprised me the most with our youth is the lack of family tradition. Simple things that you wouldn't think twice about, as far as sitting at the dining room table with your family for dinner every night, family gatherings routinely, game night, things along the lines of that. Kids are constantly moving, whether you're eating in front of the TV or the computer. Parents are constantly on the go, working 2 or 3 jobs and doing little. Parents are constantly on the go. It's just a lot going on. I guess it's just the way the world is now, to where it's always something that needs to be done or has to be done. Things need to sort of pause when it comes to the family.
So now you take all the challenges that you're dealing with like 2 months ago and you put it into this stuff that's going on today. What do you think's going to happen? How will this affect them and your work and what's going on?
Generally, I don't think it's affecting me too much as far as working in the medical field, because it's a supply and demand type of business. But when it comes to the youth and adults, for that matter, everyone is home way more than usual. So you're learning new things. You're spending more time than usual with others. There can be some type of traumatic experience going on. It can be some growth. You never know. But I do think mental health will play a big part of this. There's a lot of people that don't take it as serious as they should, but I feel like this is something that we need to take it and run with it, so to speak, as far as evaluating and making sure this isn't too traumatic of an experience for a lot of people, to anywhere from losing jobs, being kept away from family members, certain friends, any type of safe zone, even possibly, is home safe. So it's going to open a lot of doors in the process, but it's going to definitely be a learning experience.
Well, I could tell you really, really care from your heart. And I think that's what you just said, is that if we just care and we reach out wherever we are, everyone, at whatever level we are, whatever city we live in, that's what's going to make a difference. And it's a person at a time. I really want to thank you for what you're doing. I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today, because it gives a very important perspective. I hope that you stay safe and that you help your community to stay safe with all of this.
Thank you, and you as well. I appreciate you having me.
As we record this today, we're in the height of the coronavirus crisis. It affects every one of us, and profoundly. Sheltering in place is definitely a new thing, but what does it mean through the eyes of our children? For parents and caregivers, it's a time to make the most of this extended family time. It's a time to reconnect and to participate more fully in their education. It's a time to talk, to do things together outside, like ride a bike or throw a frisbee or a baseball. It's a time to understand and to teach by example. Children and young adults are feeling the stress, so talk and listen. Be clear in your directions. Let them be upset with you as you lead them down to a better path. Do what you say and create healthy routines to follow. Use this time to create new rituals for meals, for exercise, for electronic time. Focus on the positive and always show love. Stay healthy and strong until next time with Finding the Good Life.